Good morning and welcome to Zen Fits on this beautiful Sunday morning in Blackstone, Virginia, the center of the world, but then you too are at the center of the world. So let's have a Zen Fit today and look for that center. Now the title of this talk is the Buried Word of Helen Keller. I think we all have heard of Helen Keller. She dead now, but she was a famous person because she was born without sight or hearing. Complete darkness. Could feel, could smell. No hearing, no sight. Who was she? What was it like to be there? It's like being buried alive. It's like that's our terror, like being buried alive, knowing it, and can't get out. She had a teacher. A movie was made of this. I think that's how most people, I forgot the name of the movie. But there was a water faucet flowing, so the teacher stuck one hand under the water, and in the other hand wrote the symbol for word. Water, word, water, word. And Helen later describes, because she became a writer, the awakening of the idea that this sensation and the symbol were one. And it was like an explosion of a world in which she was the center, but it had no form. So now suddenly her life began. But what I was writing this morning, I come down fresh out of a meditation in the morning, and I sit at my computer and I bumble around, and I get little Zen fits. So I saw this. Somebody had posted a quote about Helen Keller, and a light went boom, and that was the same light that Helen Keller had when. These two opposites. So there was, in one hand, there was the quote that somebody had posted about, about Helen Keller, something she said. And in this hand over here, there was the knower. Well, there was something universal. There was a particular quote on Helen Keller. And then there was something mysterious and magical, or totality over here. And suddenly, the idea was there for this talk. In other words, suddenly the idea was there that this Helen Keller experience of connecting the feeling and the symbol into consciousness was Zen. And more than Zen, you see, because even when you name something, it's not what it is. Even though Helen Keller named water with a symbol, it was not the water. But it created a intermediate zone. It created a mediator. It created a conscious world where she was connected with other people through the mediation of language and the word, you see. Excuse me. So what we're digging here, what I'm digging with you, is kind of like we're in a big sandbox and we both got a shovel, or we're in a landfill and we're digging into this thing, trying to find the jewel. There's something lost in the landfill. There's something buried. We're trying to dig it up, and when we bring it up, it's like a light. It's the word. It's the word, you see. So we're looking for the word with the capital, boom, 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 before it becomes words. What is the word before it becomes little w, words? Before it becomes language? Before it becomes panacha, Now, panacha is a Sanskrit word for the proliferation of thought. Now, when you meditate, or when you just become aware of what your mind doing, you see panacha, thought proliferating, blah, 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 blah. Yada, 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 in yada, 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 in Seinfeld. Proliferation of thinking, of words, you see. But what is the original word? Well, the original word is not words, it's idea. Now, idea with a capital I, see, we get confused. We say ideas and words and thoughts and opinions, and they're all the same. Panacha. But no, the word, now of course if you read the Bible in the Hebrew text, in the ancient Hebrews, God was the Word, and the Word was God. So God wasn't a thing, God was the Word. God was this idea. God was this action, you see, not something. That came later. But to the ancient Hebrews, there's only the Word. And with Helen Keller, there's only the Word, which was the idea that this sensation, water, and the symbol of water was one, and that is consciousness. You see. When there is just words, yada, 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 proliferation of thinking, oh my God, I can't stop thinking, blah, 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 blah. That's not consciousness. In other words, that's not the idea. That's not the word. That's not you. See, you are Helen Keller before the idea that this sensation and this symbol is consciousness. You are prior to consciousness. But that's just the knower. There's no known. Helen Keller before the word was the knower. She knew she existed, but she didn't know who she was, where she was, what she was. Nothing. She was just the know. She was in like a deep sleep. You know, when we go to sleep, there's this thinking world, the conscious world, which is what we're in right here, conscious world. Then there's the dream world here, where you are the dream and the dream is you. And then there's deep sleep. And you're there, but the other two worlds are not there. So Helen Keller was kind of like in this deep sleep. There was a knower, but there was no known. There was no way to know the known. There was no consciousness of the known. It was just this knowing. So I can't really describe what it was like for her to be there, but I'm just using this juxtaposition of the two of the story of Helen Keller to try and grasp at what Zen is all about and what a Zen fit is all about. So a Zen fit in this context, as I'm playing with it here, you see, is when you have an idea that connects disconnect all the confusion, you know. In other words, when there's confusion, it's because there are too many dots. It's like when you get a picture puzzle and you say, well, what's the picture? It's a bunch of little dots there. A bunch of numbers, you see. You say, well, what's the picture of? Well, you work it out. Start connecting that, oh, it's a donkey. And as soon as you see donkey, that's the idea that this data is a donkey. Now, a donkey, of course, is something that we know. So I can say, see the donkey. And so I see the donkey over there. We don't look around, what's a donkey? You see, so the world becomes known. Now, we all go through this stage, you know, because when we're born, we're Helen Keller. Although we do have senses, seeing, hearing, and all that. But we don't know anything. There's no forms, no names, no language. I wrote about this yesterday. The one thing that fixes the baby's, the infant's mind is the mother's breast, is that nipple, it's that target. You know, that's the target with the little dot in the middle. That still point fixes the infant's mind, and upon that one dot it begins to build a known world. It begins to be Helen Keller putting a world together, you see. bit by bit, we put it together. But as we mature, this world that we put together is always fragmenting. You know, like when you're watching TV and a thunderstorm comes by and your digital image goes, you know, the world's constantly breaking up. So we're trying, wait a minute, now we got to put it back together. We got to put the world back together because it's constantly, the world's changing. So it's constantly breaking up. So we're constantly restoring America. We're constantly restoring me. Oh, I'm home. So we get home. I'm restored. Home is that nipple. I'm restored at home. Home is the center of the world. So when I say, and I begin to talk, I say, you're at the center of the world. You're at the nipple of the world. You are the nipple. That's your original word. The center, out of which everything else is built. So when everything starts to fragment and fall apart, we get too far away from our center. We get too far away from home. We get too far away from our word. We begin to fall apart and disintegrate, and the gravitational, and we lose our center. We have a panic attack and anxiety, depression, addictions. Addiction, what's that? It's just finding a new home, something you can hold on to. Hang in there with me. I remember when I used to smoke, I could say, well, I could give up everything except cigarettes. As long as I had a carton of cigarettes, house burns down, I don't care, as long as I got some cigarettes. So that was my center, you see. That was my nipple. So anyway, we're looking for the lost nipple. We're looking for the lost word. We're looking for the center that does not depend upon names and forms, because they all change. So who am I that is not dependent upon external forms and names that I cling to? False nipples. A false idol is a false nipple. It's a false fixed point that is external to me, that I'm clinging to reorganize my world when it begins to fall apart. That's what an ideology is, or a religion, or any system that has a fixed point upon which we attach ourselves, like a string, like a yo-yo to your thumb. So you go out and come back to that fixed point. But if that fixed point comes down, chaos, Helen Keller, falling, there's no known, no words, I don't know. I'm back. I fear I'm falling into the Helen Keller before the word, before the known, before the names and forms that create the world in which I live and feel safe and fix myself, you see. Because the world is just that flowing sensation of flowing that we can't name. Because when you name it, you don't really have that water. You have the name. So our world now, we believe the names are real, so we cling to the names. But behind it is the fear that I'll fall back into the original me, the original knower, before the names and forms. But that's not a fearful place, you see, but we think it is. And that's what Zen is all about. That's what any seeking, any search for your source is about. It's about deconstructing our attachments to the names and forms that we believe are real, so we can fall back into our original world, which is not dependent upon symbols and names and forms given to us by culture. But we still function in that world. I still know where everything is, what a donkey is. You know, you're still here in this world. This moment is it, you see. But you're no longer afraid that you're going to lose your center, that you're going to lose your word, because you're not attached to words. You discover that you are prior to words. You are the knower of the words. And once that awakens, you're having a Zen fit. Thanks for dropping in.